As Jamil said, I do work for the Department of Veterans Affairs. I am the Director of Clinical Operations for the VA Homeless Programs. I just want to start by saying, like, this is a very personal issue for me, the issue and topic of homelessness. I myself found myself in a situation where my housing was very unstable, and I I really understand how disruptive homelessness can be. It is so difficult to get anything accomplished when you are homeless. That's almost like a full-time job, just kind of figuring out where you're going to stay, where you're going to eat, who's going to take you in. Um, so again, I experienced that when I was very young, in my 20s, and I was able to connect with someone who helped me, a case manager who helped me get into housing, get into stable housing, and everything just kind of fell in line after that happened. And so, again, just want to share that personal story because I'm not just a government worker who's going to come up here and tell you all the great things we are doing. I definitely understand and relate to what it's like when folks are experiencing homelessness, and a it has been a passion of mine. I actually did not intend to uh, go into working with homeless folks. I actually, after I got housing, I was able to go to college and kind of thought I was going to do something like accounting or something like that. I ended up taking a social work class because it fit into my schedule. It fit into my college schedule. I took that class, and one of the things that we were required to do was do volunteer work. And so I volunteered at a site that served meals to folks who were homeless. And I realized having that experience, having the personal experience, and then working in that agency and seeing like that there is help out there and that there's stuff that we can do to give back. It just has been a passion of mine and really a calling ever since. So I've been working in homeless services for over 25 years. And I have to say, I feel like it's the best job in the world. It's hard work, but it is absolutely the best job in the world. So I just wanted to start by saying that this is, again, this is just homelessness is something that means a lot to me and that I care very deeply about. So I really appreciate you all um, taking homelessness among veterans as your cause. So I do want to talk just a little bit about some of the things that VA has done. We are very committed to ending veteran homelessness. When I say that, I say our mission is to end veteran homelessness. It's not to reduce it. It's not to make it easier for folks. Our mission is to end veteran homelessness. We don't want to see folks homeless. We don't want to see veterans homeless and on the street. We really say at the VA over and over again that the word homeless and veteran doesn't belong in the same sentence and just should not exist. We think it's not just the VA's duty. We think it's the nation's duty to take care of our veterans and to make sure that every veteran has a place to call home. There should not be a veteran who is unhoused in our country. Having said that, we have made a lot of progress in addressing the issue of veteran homelessness since 2010. And we start with 2010 because that's when we really started looking at data, compiling data, and making sure that we had good data to use. Since that time, the number of veterans who are experiencing homelessness has declined since by 55%. We look what we measure that by is it's actually a housing and urban development point in time count. So when we say homelessness among veterans has declined by 55%, we're really talking about a snapshot in time of veterans. I think I heard your last speaker talk about how there are still about 37,000 veterans. In the last complete count, there were still 37,000 veterans on this who are homeless. That's 37,000 too many veterans experiencing homelessness, and we know that. And we know that we have a lot of work to do to make sure that we get every veteran housed. But we have since 2010 also, we have housed about 978,000 veterans and their family members. And when I say house, that means we actually house them. So got veterans off the street, got them out of shelters, put them in permanent housing, not in transitional housing, not in another shelter. That is, getting folks into housing. And that's a big number. Again, we know that we have more work to do, but we have we have made progress, and we feel like the efforts that we have done at the VA, we have really committed to ending veteran homelessness, and it is something that we feel that we can do, and we know we can do. Another thing that we have done at the VA is we don't just sit here and count data and measure data. We've actually established with our along with our community partners, we call it criterion benchmarks. So we don't want to just, we look at this as some kind of a community and system issue. So there are criteria and benchmarks that we have given communities along with VA medical centers to say, what are you doing to end veteran homelessness in your community? This is not just a VA responsibility. This is a community-wide responsibility to end veteran homelessness. We have some pretty rigorous, again, benchmarks and milestones that we ask communities to do, and systems that we ask them to put in place to end veteran homelessness, and to, if a veteran does become homeless, we want them to be rehoused quickly. Since we put out that criteria and benchmarks, about 83 communities, which includes 3 entire states, which is Virginia, Connecticut, and Delaware, have actually achieved an effective end to veteran homelessness according to that criteria and benchmark. So what we have done is we actually have established pretty much a full continuum of services for veterans who are homeless. And we've kind of added programs as needed. We started off with just kind of a very simplified transitional housing program. We now have added a lot of different programs because we understand that the needs change, and that we understand that there were gaps in the services that we provided. So I want to just mention a few of those because I think it's important for folks to understand that we're not just sitting at the medical centers waiting for folks to show up and say, I'm homeless. We're actually proactively looking for folks and making sure that they are getting housed as quickly as possible. One of the things that we do is we have outreach services. So we have social workers who go out into encampments, look for folks who are sleeping in their cars, go to other shelters, and look for veterans who are homeless in those situations. And they connect them with the VA Medical Center to get health care, but they also connect them with our other homeless services and housing services that we have. In addition to having that outreach kind of front door service for veterans, we also have residential services. So these are kind of like temporary housing options for veterans. Veterans can stay in these transitional residential service programs for up to 2 years. They do get housing, they get case management services, and the whole goal of those programs is to help veterans get back on their feet, have a place to stay, and get stable, and so that they can go into permanent housing and find a place to live. We also have permanent housing solutions. So if somebody needs more than just that kind of temporary stay to get stable, we have a couple of permanent housing options. So one of those is what we call a rapid rehousing program. That rapid rehousing program will help a veteran get housed, like help with that apartment search and finding landlords, that sort of thing. That can be a real challenge for anybody, really. So that program helps folks find housing. They also pay deposit. They will pay rent for a period of time, pay for things like utilities, just until that veteran can get back on their feet and can take over their rent on their own. And then for folks that need more of a longer term, we do know that we do have veterans who may need longer term support and financial assistance. We do have, we call it supportive housing. This is actually a program where we provide a housing voucher, and actually that's provided our partners at HUD, Housing and Urban Development. They provide a housing voucher for a veteran. The VA provides healthcare, case management, and all types of services, including mental health services, substance use disorder services. We help veterans get income if they need it, help veterans get employed if they need it. So we do have kind of that full continuum from outreach to permanent housing for our veterans. We also have some supportive programs that are just for veterans who are experiencing homelessness. And those include outreach to veterans who are involved in the criminal justice system or veteran treatment courts. So we have social workers that are specialized in helping veterans who have had experience with that incarceration system. We also have a program that is just dedicated to helping veterans get employment, and that's specifically homeless veterans. Sometimes there is a little bit more, that's a little bit more of a specialty than just, regular employment service. So we do have our folks who specialize in helping veterans get housed in that way, or excuse me, get employed. One of the things that folks do ask us about is, why are veterans homeless in the first place? Like, why is this happening? Why has this happened? And there are a lot of things. We've actually got folks that have done research on veterans who fall into homelessness, as well as veterans who become homeless after we've helped them get housing. And we've kind of, one study that we did at VA and with others is that we looked at a couple of different factors. So we look at individual factors and then also environmental factors. And when we talk about individual risk factors that have contributed to a veteran becoming homelessness, those are things like mental health issues, substance use disorder issues, just growing up in poverty, having adverse childhood events, being unemployed for a period of time. And then, as I mentioned, like history of incarceration is a big risk factor for folks falling into homelessness. And we look at more like environmental or system level issues. Those are things like lack of affordable housing. There's a huge lack of affordable housing right now in the United States. We're seeing all over the place in I think every state now. You can't afford to have a 2-bedroom apartment if you're not making significantly more than minimum wage. So that's a factor, and that's really impacting folks' ability to find housing on their own. This lack of affordable housing. There are other economic factors, of course, that have to do with these kind of environmental and system level factors, including just like inability to find jobs. We have found that homelessness can go up when unemployment is high. So that's another risk factor, obviously. We also have noticed in our research that there are certain zip codes where you're more likely to become homeless in certain zip codes than you are in others for a variety of reasons. So, these are all of the things that we look at when we're taking into account like where we need to target our resources and our outreach to. And so that's probably, I think I've gone almost to my 20 minutes. So I'm going to stop there with the services that we're providing. And I just want to, again, talk about how excited we are about this and just how grateful we are that you all have chosen veteran homelessness as your cause. Just a couple of priorities to think about when you all are working on your projects is that some of the priorities that we have in the VA are we want to make sure that we prevent folks from falling back into homelessness. That is a huge, that is extremely stressful for someone who has been homeless, then gets housed to fall back into homelessness. We call those returns to homelessness. We don't want to see that. That is an absolute priority for us at the VA to make sure that once we get somebody housed, they stay housed. So that is one of our priorities. Thinking about what you could do that would be creative, that could help a veteran stay in housing. Another one of our priorities at VA is to address unsheltered homelessness. We absolutely do not want to see veterans living in tents, in their cars, on the street, in encampments of any kind. We absolutely do not want to see that. That is a priority for us in our office. We do not want veterans sleeping unsheltered at all. We don't want veterans homeless at all, but unsheltered homelessness is just not acceptable. So anything that would help a veteran who is maybe unsheltered and sleeping in a tent or in their car, anything that could get them into a safe shelter environment, to a VA program faster, that would be, again, that kind of meets up with our priorities. And then another thing that we're seeing at VA is we're seeing a lot of aging veterans. The average age of our veteran population is getting older and older. So unfortunately, we are seeing folks who are who are becoming homeless at an older rate. And we also are seeing, within our existing, I mentioned our supportive housing programs, some of those folks are aging. And so we're seeing that we're serving a much older population than we used to. And so anything that could make services more accessible to an aging veteran would certainly be something that we would think would be a huge benefit to our veterans. So hope that was helpful. Again, just want to say thank you again. This is just amazing to see you all helping other veterans and helping such vulnerable veterans as well. And we're just very grateful to all of you and wish you all good luck. Thank you. Thanks so much.